Time for some Type 40, a little extra helping of Type 40 for you here on the Spacebook channel. Just when you think you've loosened your belt to the max after a big Christmas dinner with me, Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks. Welcome to Type 40 Extra. Type 40 Extra is an after show, before show, and in between show to all the Type 40 podcasts and live streams that we put out through the Fandom Podcast Network and over here on the Spacebook YouTube channel. It's a chance for us to chill. Quite literally, it's very, very frosty. To chill, to hang, and to shoot the S. No, I'm not talking about the snow, the other S. Shoot the S about whatever's going on sideways in time in the Doctor Who universe. And no sooner have we picked the last of the main course from our teeth, and that Doctor Who trailer that we got on Christmas Day. More on that another time. No sooner have we finished all that, we have this extra dollop of new Doctor Who wintry rumours that have come to light over the last few hours. So I thought we'd get stuck into those here and now and see if between us we couldn't work out, try and make some sense of it all really, and see if any of it's remotely possible. But before we get into that, I'd like to remind you to, if you haven't already, please like this video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check that you're still subscribed. If you think you're subscribed, you might want to go back and check, because YouTube can get funny like that. So please check you're subscribed and hit the cloister bell so you get all the notifications about what we're doing next and when we're doing it. It could be a podcast or a live stream, and you may have been having so much fun. You may have been all over the place going from one relative to another. You might not have caught our big Christmas content here on the Spacebook channel. There were two wintry Doctor Who flavoured shows. First, there was Type 40 Live Cold Front, when myself and the team got stuck into those new pictures with the leaked images from the set of the TARDIS itself for the 60th anniversary, maybe, or even beyond that. And then there was the big Type 40 Live Christmas party for 2022. So go and check out some of those at your leisure. Well, that's if you can contain your excitement after we've picked through all of this, because I don't know if you remember, but I think over the last 12 months, this has happened twice. Now, obviously, here in the Whoniverse, we're always talking about Doctor Who, aren't we? And fantasy casting next incarnations, even before the present incarnation has even started their tenure. It's just something we exist in a permanent state of, isn't it? And I think that joining that over the last decade, certainly since the advent of New Who, is speculation about what would make a great Doctor Who spin-off. And because we're always talking about it, and because the mainstream media, they come to us for their Doctor Who whispers, rumours, leaks, and all the rest of it, because we never stop talking about it, this story seems to self-regenerate every few months. And so, for the most part, I've kind of left it alone, because it stands to reason to me that a property, an IP, like Doctor Who, which in the past has had great successes with spin-off shows and some notable failures, it's fair to say, some standout failures, whether you are fond of the shows or not. It's been variable results, hasn't it? But you got to break a few eggs to make an omelette, haven't you? And that's part of the joy of this, and the speculating about what we would like to see and what could possibly work. And it tends to be the same things that we go back to time and time again. Now, in this instance, I'm thinking back to, I think it was last June, and then last November, when the tabloids were full of one particular story. And this came from the Daily Mirror, and the writer Nicola Methven. I knew I was going to cock that up. This came from Nicola. That's more like it. At the Daily Mirror, which has, here's that disclaimer again, the Daily Mirror has still a good, I still hold, they've had a few failures lately, but generally their hit record of getting Doctor Who stories right is pretty damn good. And they went with this update to that original story as an exclusive in mid-November, so it was just after the anniversary, after Doctor Who Day, and the headline was, Doctor Who villains like the Weeping Angels and the dreaded Daleks are as iconic as the Time Traveller himself and his police box TARDIS, and we will soon be seeing more of them, according to an insider. Doctor Who villains, Cybermen and Daleks to get spin-off series in huge Disney deal. the Disney attachment to Doctor Who has really caught people's imaginations, hasn't it? It's got people's attention and it's got them talking, which is, of course, that was the general idea, wasn't it? That's why we see the logo plastered there next to the Diamond logo, the new Diamond logo, the new old Diamond logo. There's the Disney logo too, and the BBC logo. So they know exactly what they're doing with that. But yeah, it's Russell T Davies, of course, driving this. He's always been a big believer in the concept of a Whoniverse, and that's what Nicola gets into here. Now, I believed that Nicola, in this instance, with the best will in the world, got her exclusive from visiting fan sites. I think that all of these legacy journalists, I think they're in Facebook groups. In fact, I know they're in Facebook groups, and they know exactly where to go. They used to use Gallifrey Base. It stands to reason now that that forum is largely quite dilapidated and to use an Alan Partridge word, moribund. I think it's not the place to go now. I think social media is, and those groups where there's a lot of idle speculation and wish fulfillment going on. But, you know, to the untrained eye, it's full of gold, because this obviously they sell these stories not necessarily back to us. They sell these back to the masses, don't they? They sell these back to the floating viewers who used to like Doctor Who. So he said, showrunner Russell T Davies is pushing ahead with plans to expand the Whoniverse with Marvel-style spin-offs, and why not? And they follow it up with, it comes after the BBC struck a deal with Disney Plus worth tens of millions last month. So yes, that was confirmed in the October, wasn't it? The Beeb. The Beeb. Does anybody ever call it the Beeb anymore, apart from the tabloids? The Beeb sold the US giant the global streaming rights to Doctor Who outside the UK. The deal means budgets on the 2024 series starring the 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, could triple. That's something we'd heard on Type 40 as well, wasn't it? The massive increased budget, which does seem to have been confirmed. But their source explained to Nicola there at the Mirror, fans can expect to see Sontarans, Weeping Angels, and Sea Devils in separate series, showing what they get up to when the Doctor isn't there to stop them, along with the Daleks and the Cybermen. The choice of words there, what they get up to, makes them sound like mischievous little scamps. It makes it sound like it's going to be the Muppet Babies. I don't think that's going to happen with the Daleks. It's certainly not going to happen with the Weeping Angels, is it? So it's tabloid speak, really, isn't it? And to be honest, I didn't think this was worth getting into initially, because this isn't something that we didn't expect, is it? Russell has talked about these things over and over again, and in between his stints as showrunner of Doctor Who, now, I think there was a quote from around 2 to 3 years ago where the Marvel stuff was really taking off, and they were starting to put things on television as well, like around the time WandaVision was on, where he said, "Oh, you know, back in the day, we were already doing that, and we were too early, weren't we? We were far too early." And I think there was a hint of regret in his voice, really. I suppose when he switches on the TV and sees not only is there no Doctor Who spin-off, but most of the time there's no Doctor Who, he must look at it and he must have seen his own legacy, his own. It's a show that he was always going to be associated with, whether he was working on it or not. But it is his legacy. And when it was run into the ground by that idiot Chris Chibnall, you can see why he may have thought, perhaps we can turn it around. And then just around 18 months ago, we saw this too, didn't we? So Whoniverse 1 Limited was registered there. This is with Companies House in the UK. And we found this out on Type 40 Live. So it's got Julie Gardner. She is the name at the top of the sheet there, listed as director, and various managing director there, it says. And she was appointed the director of Whoniverse 1 Limited on the 2nd of November 2021. So this has just sat there. We haven't heard any more about this since, but that word Whoniverse does keep turning up. We're hearing some of the actors refer to it as well, some of the production team, and the fact that this is a brand new start for Doctor Who that could go anywhere. So yeah, the tabloids have picked up on this, and now we're getting new information, fresh information. This comes from, I want to get this right, so all of this new information about the next era of Doctor Who comes from Feisty Extension, posting on Reddit. And they say, yes, the tabloids are more or less correct. There are several spin-offs in development with BBC Studios, Bad Wolf, and Disney Plus. It is, however, more complex than Daleks and Cybermen as protagonists. That's not entirely the case. So again, it's accepting the fact that obviously these are the big icons, aren't they? The Daleks and the Cybermen. You can see why they would look to them, why they'd be particularly interesting, because whether they're together or apart, I think it's still kind of irresistible. We'd all like to see the Daleks and the Cybermen go against one another, wouldn't we? They've shared screen time quite recently, in fact, but far better back in 2006 in Doomsday. And I think most of us could have stood another 50 minutes to an hour of the Daleks and the Cybermen going at it. That would have been absolutely fine. But I think Big Finish have proven, haven't they, that the Daleks and the Cybermen work sort of on their own, as long as there's some other alien race, humanoid ideally, for them to bounce off, to play off, for them to be the antagonists too. I think it's wrong to sort of line up the Cybermen or the Daleks perhaps as heroes of their own show, but to put them against a group of humans or a group of aliens or whatever, an ensemble cast of people, either in the distant past or the far-flung future, or off on another world, or even on a parallel world. That could be quite good. I can see why they keep going back to that. But they're saying that the stuff with the Daleks and the Cybermen that the tabloids have latched onto, that is only a very, very tiny part of it. First of all, they claim there is a unit spin-off in development. I'm quoting their exact words here to make sure that they get it exactly right. They say they did not design those fancy new armors for nothing. So yeah, we did see unit troopers in the most recent special, wasn't it? It's in the Power of the Doctor. We saw unit troopers wearing brand new armor and redrawn logos and things like that. So this article claims that they did not design those fancy new armors for nothing, and that some characters introduced in the 60th will have roles in this series. See, I'm already skeptical. I have no doubt. Well, I know. We all know. We know that units are involved in Doctor Who going forward. Either the 60th anniversary stuff, more likely in Series 14, whatever that's going to be, because we saw those aerial photography shots, didn't we, at Bad Wolf, of a helicopter pad there with that new logo on, with the new unit logo on. That's a big installation there, isn't it, with JCBs and things that could be there for quite some time for all we know. So we know that's going to happen. But the idea that they're going to incorporate characters from the Power of the Doctor, and this may spring out of Power of the Doctor, that's where I start to get a little bit shaky on this. I don't think they'll want to go anywhere near that. I mean, it was such a simplistic representation of unit anyway. I think that conceptually they may look at some of the ideas that were floated in there. I think, for example, the fact that unit recruited, they've not just got their own personnel like the standard unit goons that we see in the berets and whatever else. They've now recruited the likes of Ace and Tegan as specialists, and they could retain their services, or they could employ other familiar faces too to do whatever work that they need to do to fight off whatever bad guys that could appear. Unit has that long history with Doctor Who, doesn't it? Right the way back to 1968 there, when we first met Colonel Lethbridge Stewart. And for about 5-6 years, wasn't it? The unit was a regular presence in the show, and then made several reappearances throughout the classic series. And then Russell T Davies used them quite effectively, didn't he, throughout his run? Stephen Moffat, perhaps less so, but he definitely pushed the concept on with the appointment of Kate Stewart as the new head of unit, and characters like Osgood. So it's something that I think we can say is perennial, and that was never going to go away forever. And there has been, of course, talk of a unit spin-off show stretching right the way back to the 70s. So if this does happen, it's kind of like Strange New Worlds, the Star Trek show. It's the spin-off that's taken the longest to happen, because of course that was the original concept for Star Trek itself, wasn't it? So I think that this could be true, particularly as they say here that this show could be very much like Torchwood, as in it will feature different threats, both alien and earthbound, and there will be non-human members of the cast. So again, it's wide open. That's interesting, isn't it? They could go anywhere with that. What's slightly more surprising in these rumors is that they claim that Russell T Davies has spoken to some of the cast of Torchwood about returning and potentially being transferred to unit. Again, this is where they start to stretch their credibility with me a little, because correct me if I'm wrong, there's only Jack and Gwen that are still alive out of Torchwood, unless we're going to connect with the audio stuff, which is possible. I can see that Torchwood itself would have a presence, but I don't see why Russell would speak to a cast, which a cast of great actors, but who did play characters that expired on screen. I don't think he's interested in going back like that. And so when I read elements like this in these Reddit rumors, that's when I start to doubt them. It also specifically states that John Barrowman will not be returning anytime soon for obvious reasons. It's a bit arch. We love JB here at Type 40. No problems there whatsoever. Then it moves on to talk about Doctor Who itself, rather than just the spin-offs. And it says that MFX, so that's the new special effects house, isn't it, that's attached to Doctor Who, are designing Silurian props for the first season. And it says, and when I say Silurians, I mean actual animalistic Silurians, thanks to those increased budgets that we talked about earlier on. The budgets have tripled, maybe even more so. And I suppose if they're going to invest in new creature designs or redesigns, it would make sense. These could be costumes and gadgets that, and I suppose just plain old props, that if they look after them, you know, as we've seen with the Gold Daleks, they could potentially be using them across multiple series for many, many years. So it would make sense, would it, to go back and to redesign some of these things. But of course, the Silurians themselves first appeared in 1970, very memorably there in Doctor Who and the Silurians, and then appeared 14 years later in Warriors of the Deep. Again, I've quite liked their look in that. But when Stephen Moffat brought them back for the Hungry Earth story in Matt Smith's first season, this was a bit of a switch-off point for some classic fans because they were so humanoid and so different. It was never a big problem for me as such, but I can see, because it did serve the story quite well, but I can see why some people may feel that it harmed the Silurians as a concept, and that by perhaps getting back to that animalistic, as the leaks say, animalistic design, we could really go somewhere that would reconnect with the origins of the characters and maybe take the show into darker territory again. I think they can afford to do that with some of these monsters, because popular fiction and genre entertainment has come on a lot in the last 10 or 15 years, isn't it? And what I think the audience too, I think what younger members of the audience, what they will find scary, I think that's changed as well. And I'm reminded of these creatures. Now, before we got those humanoid Silurians in that Stephen Moffat story, there was talk. They went through a whole redesign process, and this was the original design. They were going with something that was much closer to the classic series and a lot scarier. So I'm not saying they're gonna reuse these, but it is possible. We've seen those leaked pictures of the brand new TARDIS set, haven't we? And those bear certain resemblances to Brian Hitch's original TARDIS design from 2004 that they also couldn't afford to do. So they can go back to some of these ideas maybe and see if they're financially wise now, and to see if creatively and budget wise, to see if they're possible. So I'm sort of excited by the idea of the Silurians coming back, and particularly if they're going to be purer to that original concept as envisaged by Malcolm Hawke back there in 1970. Let me know what you think in the comments section, not just about the Silurians, but about Unit 2. We are ready to receive any of your ideas about where they could go with that, or simply whether you think it's a load of old bollocks or not. There's no wrong answers. This could go absolutely anywhere. We've got more Doctor Who rumours here too, specifically about cast members. Now, they go with David Tennant. David Tennant's flavour of the month, isn't he? After they dropped that trailer. I know there are a few people out there who are somewhat salty, and that's not a word I use very often, somewhat salty about the whole Jodie Whittaker into David Tennant business. The fact that, he's within 10 seconds, he managed to jolt the series back into life and get everybody excited about it again. So yes, that's a very, very tiny minority of people who are salty about that. Most people are over the moon about it. But these rumours, they suggest that Tennant himself could be sticking around for a little longer, even if the 14th Doctor doesn't. They go on to say David Tennant will return in the series from time to time in a guest or possibly recurring role, but this time as the Meta-Crisis Doctor. And that Billy Piper, this is a big swing, and that Billy Piper will return as Rose too. So we will get to see what this Doctor has been up to along with Rose. They keep using that phrase, been up to. Everybody's been up to something, haven't they? But I think we probably know what they've been up to. I'd say there's probably a few mini metas around the place by now. I'd like to think so. Now, the Meta-Crisis Doctor, this is something that I know a lot of people are really invested in, and it was a hell of a seed to sow all the way back in 2009. To leave it like that and to not visit it again, it'd be naive to say that will never happen. The idea that David Tennant could be a recurring presence in the series going forward, again, this is where I feel they're on shaky ground. I can't see Tennant necessarily agreeing to that. I think it would kind of be a little unfair on Ncuti Gatwa as well to do this, to have this sort of parallel storyline running alongside it actually in the main show with another Doctor. Now, if they were going to do a spin-off series about the Meta Doctor and Rose and the life that they've had since we last saw them, because it'd be quite different, wouldn't it? Because this Doctor is pretty much human, or was. I think that was the setup as I remember it. There's ground that could be covered there as a limited series, as an event series. I can see them doing that. But to drizzle him through the main series whilst the 15th Doctor is growing his audience and telling his story, having his adventures week to week to week, I feel would be a mistake. There's the proviso here in the rumours, though. It says, though, due to Tennant's schedule, it will only perhaps be an episode or a two-parter every season, or maybe every other season. But the plan is to allow a stable pathway to other universes to be developed without damaging either. So Meta 10 and the other unit and Rose can hop to and from universes. Wow. Again, it's a big swing. I can believe that some of this would happen, as I say, but I just struggle to think that it could happen within the main show. I think this could be another idea for a spin-off, and that's where the muddle may be happening, because I think that David Tennant would be up for pretty much anything. And we did hear Russell joke, didn't we, 2 or 3 years ago, how he could imagine like a set miniseries with the 10th and the 11th Doctor together. I mean, we're never quite sure with Russell how playful he's being and how serious he's being when he talks about these things, because he talked about the Nissa adventures as well, didn't he? The spin-off about Nissa. And I quite frankly, I wouldn't rule that out. So yeah, let me know what you think of that too. I mean, David Tennant, he's played 3 incarnations of the Doctor, you could say, in the 10th Doctor, the 14th Doctor, and the Meta-Crisis Doctor, which infuriates some people who've got not great deal of things to think about, it seems to me. Needs something to be furious about out there. David Tennant's incredibly successful in this role. I don't think that there will ever be a time where David Tennant won't be possible to return to this series in some capacity or another, even if there's a gap of 5 to 10 years, as there has been sort of now. I think Doctor Who will always be in his life, and he will always be connected to the show. And so if they can get him back the way that they got McGregor back for Obi-Wan Kenobi in a finite way. Yeah, I know they're talking about a second series of that now, but they weren't originally, were they? I think that Disney and Bad Wolf and the BBC, with this whole Whoniverse idea, could create proper event shows that are literally mini series that are completely contained, and they could blaze a trail really for bold storytelling with all of these characters and all of these setups, where the seeds have been sown. In the case of this, we're talking about 10 years, aren't we? 10, 12, 13 years, but in some cases, far, far longer. And I think as long as you script it sensitively, you can update practically anything with Doctor Who. And as long as you make sure that all the earlier episodes are still available for people to watch. Let's turn our attention to the Daleks for a moment, shall we? The Daleks are set to be redesigned by Bad Wolf for Doctor Who for Series 14 in 2024. We've had that confirmed, I think, soft confirmed, not from Russell himself, but I think it has been stated by the people who work on the production design department. So we kind of know that's coming. The bronze Daleks are going to, if not disappear completely, certainly be superseded And who knows? Who knows who they'll go to for inspiration for that? We're looking at the moment of the work of the CGI artist, the fan artist Ben Dewar, who's one of my favourites in this respect. It's a very nice redesign that he's pulled off there. Who knows where the BBC could go with it? But whilst there are rumours of some sort of spin-off involving the Daleks, these rumours go on to mention the Daleks' sort of second best enemy, I suppose you could say. And this one is simply called Dark. And as you probably worked out by now, it involves everyone's favourite Dalek hunter, as the rumours say, and Dalek hunter and killer, Absalom Dark, Dalek killer. He would be the protagonist of this show. It says we will also see Dalek protagonists and a plethora of new and old Dalek types returning. So that's interesting. So we could see models of Daleks from the classic series and the new series and whatever they're going to do with it in the future, all on screen together. So, sort of how it was in Asylum of the Daleks. So we know that the special weapons Dalek going against Absalom Dark, that could be pretty cool, couldn't it? So we know they can get their hands on a lot of these either actual props or fan-made stuff or refitted Dalek casings that they could use quite well in a show like this, as long as they don't let Absalom Dark cut it up too much. So it says here, there'll be lots of Mad Max 80s influence going on in this one. Russell T. Davies has a shortlist of actors for the role of Dark, but none of them have been cemented yet. Now, I would say that this is Sam Ryder, the UK's Eurovision entrant for 2022. I think that he would be a shoo-in myself. He seems to do a lot of the cackling. He's certainly got the hair and the beard. But yeah, maybe they've got somebody in mind from some sort of event show. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Who would make a good live action Absalom Dark from one of those shows? Maybe from Outlander or The Kingdom, all those sort of historical drama shows, Game of Thrones, all that stuff. Get somebody, rescue somebody from The Witcher and parachute them into the role of Absalom Dark. Absalom Dark is the comic strip character that first appeared in Doctor Who Weekly back in, it would have been 1980, wouldn't it, in those original stories. And they've collected them, I think, once or twice now. Marvel have put it all out as a graphic novel, and the character did return to the comic strip too, to great effect again against the Daleks. I think he's died 2 or 3 times, Absalom Dark, but there's no reason why this couldn't work in live action. We've had it hinted at before. They used this illustration, this Steve Dillon illustration. Steve Dillon was the original artist who co-created Absalom Dark, I think. They used this on screen in Time Heist back in that was series 9, wasn't it? Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman. And yeah, every sort of little fanboy went, "Oh!" yelped when they saw Absalom Dark on screen. Again, it was weird that they used an illustration at the time, but I suppose they didn't want to cast anybody just for that one picture. It'd be a thankless task, wouldn't it? And I can see why they didn't do it, I suppose. But yeah, Absalom Dark is a fantastic character, and I really do encourage, if you've never read Absalom Dark, Dalek Killer, I think you can still get hold of this graphic novel, this sort of trade paperback that collects it. I think that'd probably be a lot easier to get that than to track down the original issues of the Weekly or whatever else, of the Star Tigers, all these other adventures that he had. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Again, this is a character they could either adapt those original stories as a limited series, or they could just take that character and take the general setup. He's got a sort of backstory that's similar to the Punisher, really. So he vows to destroy every stinking Dalek in the universe, doesn't he? Because the Daleks exterminates his wife. And I think that Mr. Freeze style, he has to put her into a glass case. The idea, so he believes that he can revive her, that he can save her life. And it's all this very, very tragic. And it's beautiful in black and white too. I've seen colorized versions of it since, but for me, Steve Dillon's work always worked better in black and white. Anyway, it's just one of those kinds of artists. Can't recommend that enough. Whoever they cast in this role, they're big boots and shoulder pads to fill. Again, they're saying in these rumors it would be Mad Max influenced. I don't necessarily see. I think that he looks that kind of character anyway. It's just a shorthand, isn't it? But yeah, I'm pretty keen on this. I certainly think it could work. You can either adapt the old stuff, or you can take this character on new adventures and use the comics as a starting point for giving us a show that would be, I would imagine, quite action-led in a way that Doctor Who can't really be action-led, and maybe less less cerebral and conceptual than Torchwood, and just be a bit gung-ho and have a lot of fun with a character like that. I think there's a lot of possibility there, but who could play the character? We are assured, though, that, and this is just sensible, isn't it? Apparently the 15th Doctor, the plan is that the 15th Doctor will meet Absalom Dark. Absalom Dark in the past has met the 7th Doctor in the comic strip. This is the thing, isn't it? Where if it'll be, I suppose you can say what you like about Class, but the way that they set Class up was wise. They'd got Peter Capaldi in that very first episode, hadn't they? And it could have worked just as well the other way around. Just like when Deep Space Nine and Star Trek The Next Generation used to cross over, so they'd go into each other's shows. I think, however, the 15th Doctor and Absalom Dark could meet is going to work, and it could be quite organic. And they could potentially keep bringing them back together every now and then, couldn't they? And it could be a sort of a recurring thing with in jokes, Captain Jack style, I suppose. But yeah, it's a character that never loses its popularity. He's very, how can I put this? I think he's the ultimate sort of toxic masculinity figure in some respects, Absalom Dark, isn't he? He does seem like a character that's a hangover from a bygone age, but it depends what they do with the stories and how they tell them. I personally would go for a straight adaptation of those original stories, probably as a finite thing, and see where you go from there. If the audience latches onto the character, then why not keep using him again. I think any one of his deaths, you don't need to kill him every single time, but it could go pretty much anywhere. We've got talk in these rumours too of the Cybermen, and it says that whilst the tabloids reported Cybermen, I haven't heard of any shows fully devoted to them. It says for now, Unit and Dark are the first two spin-offs in development, but expect more. Russell T Davies has long envisaged these shows will absolutely cross over with each other and the main Doctor Who series. The plans are extravagant for the next several years and sure to keep fans excited. And Russell did speak recently, didn't he? I wouldn't say it was a disclaimer as such, but he did speak recently about the format of Series 14 as we know it at the moment. When they announced it would be 8 episodes, some people were very disappointed about that. And Russell went straight onto Instagram and said it takes a while to get the Empire in shape, but that's a serious plan. Annual Doctor Who, no gap years, lots of content, on and on. Okay, that's fewer episodes than the last series, but give us time. We have plans, and that's a promise. I don't think Russell, when he says plans, I don't think he just means for the main show. I think he's talking about all of this stuff, all the Whoniverse stuff as well. And we can expect, some of it may not come to pass, the best laid plans and all that. I suppose it all depends really on how well the 60th anniversary stuff goes and then the shooty stuff that follows. But it's the potential for this is absolutely huge. And yeah, there is. I think if by having it on Disney Plus, whatever you think of Disney, it's a masterstroke. This is the platform that feels like the natural home for Doctor Who out of all of the streaming platforms. And if they launch it correctly and enough people find it, particularly in that gap between mid-November and Christmas, they could really catch that lightning here and get it off to a brilliant start. We've got more. It says, as for past Doctors, apart from the above-mentioned Meta-Crisis 10th Doctor appearing in specials, it will likely happen. But at present, Russell T Davies is focused solely and rightly on Ncuti and his chosen spin-off characters. So that's reassuring, isn't it? Because I think that even the Meta-Crisis Doctor, you could say it's a different character altogether that we could get to know, because him not being a pure Time Lord character, he's likely to be very different from the Doctor that we've been watching on the screen all these years, isn't he? So we could get to know him sort of all over again. But I'm not sure the general audience would see it like that. And I think it would just seem like, oh, it's David Tennant again. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the live chat about all of that. Where could they go with that character? Am I worrying too much about it? I just want the whole thing to be a success. But yeah, I think obviously people will never stop asking for the 8th Doctor, will they? We've only recently had a brief glimpse of him there in The Power of the Doctor. That's never going to be enough. You're never going to completely satisfying you, and certainly never going to end the appetite for more of the Eighth Doctor. We have got more information too, though, about comic strip characters. So we've got that about Absalom Dark there. We've got a little more about Beep the Meep. Beep the Meep from the classic comic strip from Doctor Who Weekly, The Star Beast. It looks like part of the 60th anniversary series is going to be an adaptation of The Star Beast, if not literally, then conceptually. And Beep the Meep is going to be a big part of it. We saw him in that trailer, and it says here in the Reddit Rumours, and as a last bit of info, Beep the Meep will be a recurring character throughout the second tenure of Russell T Davies. You can expect him to pop up from time to time, with this 60th anniversary serving as his introduction. Beep does appear in multiple comic strips. I think they've been several years apart, but this character has recurred over and over again. And I think there are 2 Big Finish stories too now with the character, maybe 3, I'm not sure, but I know that there's definitely been more than one now, voiced by an actor. I can't quite remember his name, but yeah. So again, there's a precedent that's already been set for Beep the Meep being a recurring character, and all that information comes from Feisty Extension over there on Reddit. That site, don't know whether they're reputable or not, but I thought there was so much to get stuck into there. It was kind of irresistible, particularly after Christmas, when we're all lazily looking at this stuff, aren't we? I've had a fantastic Christmas. I hope you have too. Let us know in the comment section what you think about all of those new rumours about where it could go with the Whoniverse and with Doctor Who in this brand new era under Russell T Davies. He seems to have lots of big plans. But is any of that working for you? It's highly unlikely in any respect if all of that is actually going to come to pass, not least of all because plans do change. And this is why these are leaks, these are rumors, nothing has been officially announced. They don't, I mean, some production teams don't officially announce things because they do want to keep us in the dark, and they're not doing a very good job, and they kind of want to they want to sort of leverage the game, don't they, to make sure that we don't realize they're not doing a very good job until the last minute. Tribunal! But in this case, I think they are trying to genuinely build that empire that Russell was talking about, to expand not just the worth of their intellectual property, but the range of entertainment value that we and the viewers that may find Doctor Who in the future could get from it. Really expand that universe and take on the pretenders, their Star Treks and the Star Wars, MCU and all that stuff. Who's interested in the MCU? I don't know. Let me know what you think of all of that. Do you think Reddit is reputable? Do you think that we should take this sort of stuff seriously or with a pinch of salt or something in between? Because looking through all of that as we've just done, there are certain things in there that in my head are perfectly logical. They're the places that I would go to for not just serviceable Doctor Who spin-offs, but for imaginative Doctor Who spin-offs that combine enough of what people recognize already from the show culturally with exciting things, exciting concepts and characters that have been proven to work before on television and in expanded media. This is what I've never understood about what Disney have done with Star Wars, because they had all those books. The books were, what were the original books called? The pocket books, weren't they? So the original line of books, and then the Dark Horse comics. There was decades worth of stories that they just left untapped. They decided to have a complete do-over. Massive, massive mistake. If you've got stuff in the canon, or certainly in the portfolio that has worked in other media, and particularly that other people, older people will like and will support and will champion, out of simple goodwill or misty-eyed nostalgia, why not play into that? You're leaving money on the table. I'd absolutely go with it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Does any of that excite you, or does it leave you completely cold? How likely do you think it is that we could see, for example, that entire spin-off series based around the United Nations Intelligence Task Force, or the Unified Intelligence Task Force? I'll never get used to that. Is that quite likely? Could Sam Ryder be Absalom Dark? Maybe not. I don't know. Let me know who you'd cast as Absalom Dark. There's the Daleks themselves. Do you think a Dalek show could work? Why not? Are they crazy not to develop some sort of Cybermen show? me know what you think about all of that. And yeah, Torchwood and Unit. Should Torchwood come back in some form or another, with or without John Barrowman? Personally, for me, John Barrowman's Captain Jack, you can't not have him in there, in my view. And perhaps Torchwood has had its day and they're right to move on. But I know that people are very, very fond of it, and I do get it. And I'd be down for it pretty much whatever. And that's the beauty of this. Whichever of these things happen and don't happen, I'm pretty much wide open to whatever they want to do, whatever they want to try. I will certainly give it my support if it looks like it's been done with a good heart and with that willingness to entertain us first and foremost. Please, please hit the playlists for all our other content, not just the Christmas content, but all the podcasts and live streams from us on Type 40 and Type 40 Live. So I'd hate to think how many hours worth of entertainment there is there, of our rambles, our interviews, our deep dives and geek outs there for you here on the Type 40 shows. But it's all there ready for you to enjoy if you know where to look. It's all in the playlists here on the Spacebook channel. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the cloister bell if you haven't already. Get all the notifications for whatever I'm talking about next on these video diaries, whatever's going on the podcast, or when we're back with another edition of Type 40 Live. There'll be a brand new series of Type 40 Live coming in 2023. You're not going to want to miss that. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40. Keep on enjoying your Christmas. It's not over yet. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.